Blog Talk Radio.
I got it. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Women of Golf show. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. I apologize. I had a little technical difficulty this morning, but I think we'll be all right now. We got a great show for you. I'm just waiting for Cindy to come into the show as well, and we will begin. And as I say, I apologize for the delay this morning on coming on live here. I'm not sure what happened, but for some reason my mic wasn't working. So hang on one second. I'm just going to check with Cindy here, and I'll be right back, and I apologize. Hey. Hello? Yes, I am. Yeah, go ahead and call back in, and I'll pick you up. Again, I apologize this morning, ladies and gentlemen, for the difficulty this morning, but for some reason, ran into a little bit of a technical difficulty, and hopefully we've got everything straightened out, and that looks like Cindy's coming on. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning.
Hi, I apologize. I don't know what happened. I was talking and my mic wasn't working, so I apologize for that. But we're good now. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Women of Golf show. And again, I'm your host, Ted Odorico. And of course, right alongside is LPGA professional Legends Tour player Cindy Miller. Cindy, good morning. And again, I apologize. I'm not sure what happened, but I guess my mic wasn't on, and I'm babbling away, and nothing was happening.
Well, that's good, because I thought you might have died.
No. But let me just get...
wow.
No, and I apologize, and thank you for bringing it to my attention. Cindy actually was texting me and calling me at the same time on my cell phone just to, I guess, let me know that I wasn't appearing there. So again, I apologize. Let me just get all the information out here, Cindy, real quick, and then we'll begin. Again, welcome everybody to the Women of Golf Show. And we're live, of course, when things are working every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here on blogtalkradio.com. Easiest way to find it is to go up to blogtalkradio.com, up in the search key and type Women of Golf, and you'll get here every morning on Tuesdays. And we're also available for download through iTunes. So if you're somebody that likes to use your iTunes account, you can go into itunes.com, type in under podcast Women of Golf, and you'll get here just as easily. We're live, as I said, every Tuesday mornings, and if you want to call into the program or have some comments or questions, you can certainly do so by calling area code 347-945-5855, and you can also email the program as well at womenofgolf@gmail.com. If you're interested in coming on the program, if you're somebody in the golf industry and you feel you've got something that you'd like to share with the audience, you can reach out to Cindy Miller at cindy@cindymillergolf.com, or you can also reach me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. We've got a great show this morning, Cindy. We got coming up first here in just a few moments is Jennie Lee from the Symetra Tour, and then a little bit later on, Gail Graham, a great LPGA professional who has played for a number of years, and of course she has a lot of other things going on, and we'll talk to her as well. But U.S. Open this week. What are your predictions? What are your predictions, do you think?
I haven't really paid that much attention to it. I don't have any predictions at this point. I would be looking out for Jordan Spieth, though.
Yeah, I think Jordan's going to do very well. Hearing a lot of mixed chatter. I don't know if you've heard it or not as well, but a lot of people unsure. Of course, Chambers Bay is where it's being held this year, and it's, of course, a links-style course, very unlike what the traditional sort of U.S. Open venues are. So a lot of people are sort of, mixed reactions to it. Some think it's a great course. Some aren't too sure. Very reminiscent, of course, of a British Open track. So it's going to be interesting to see how the players handle it this week.
It is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and this is actually a breakout for this particular course. It's the first that U.S. Open or any real major tournament has ever been played there. It's in fact, I think it's very, very new track. So it's going to be interesting to see how it holds up under U.S. Open conditions, and it's going to be interesting, of course, to see how the players, not a lot of trees to block the wind. So if they get a good stiff breeze, it's going to be very, very tricky conditions, which normally are like that anyways at a U.S. Open. So it'll be interesting to see how the players handle it.
It will be, and it's funny. Our son-in-law, Ben, is producing the Golf Central show from out there. So I could get some inside scoop, and I will have it ready for you next Tuesday morning.
Great. Well, we'll have a U.S. Open wrap up next week and talk with about some of the highlights. That'd be fantastic. That'd be great. A lot of other things going on. I did my show last Thursday night, Golf Talk Live. Of course, I do that Thursday nights here on Blog Talk Radio. And one of the things we'll just talk very quickly because I know we've got Jennie going to be coming on here shortly, but. A lot of chatter, and this seems to recirculate every so often, but Tiger Woods has sort of been in the news again, really struggled really bad at the Memorial tournament, Jack Nicklaus's tournament, the Memorial. And a lot of people are really concerned that he's just not with it. And I have my own theory. I don't think it's a physical thing anymore. I think it's beyond that. I think Tiger certainly has a game. Certainly has the physical game if he wants to. I really believe this has become an emotional issue for him. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think golf is a game that there are always consequences to your actions. Mm-hmm. And once in a while you can get away with some things, but typically not so much. And it'll be interesting to see what he does because we all know he's very competitive and he does not like to lose. And shooting an 85 there was a point, I'm sure, where he just didn't care and he was Lash LaRue and I didn't watch it. But, there comes a point where you just surrender and you say, I don't really care what I shoot today. I can't protect this anymore. But I don't think he's going to quit by any means.
No.
But I think he needs to reflect on the path that he's chosen. And I think he needs to adapt and change some stuff. It's funny, I was with Cheyenne Woods yesterday, his niece, at the Renee Powell Pro-Am, and we didn't really discuss him at all, other than you talk to him once in a while. And he's not going to give up, I can tell you that. He needs to save face. But I sure hope he makes the right choices in the next person that's going to try to help him.
Yeah, I think, and the reason why I say more of an emotional thing, I just think that this is something that's sort of, been around him now for the last few years. He's made some changes again. Now he's with, of course, Chris Como, who's working on his game for him or helping him to work on his game. And they've been, I've seen on Facebook here, even as recent as this morning, some people, of course, there always get somebody has to give feedback on some of the things that he's working on. But when I introduce the emotional side of things, I really think what's happened with him is I think because he hasn't been able to play at the level that he feels he's capable of, I think it has sort of gotten into his psyche a little bit. And he really, I agree. I don't think he's planning on packing up tomorrow. But when I look at him and I see the facial expressions and things, obviously there's frustration, but I see somebody that I don't feel emotionally has made that commitment. And I'm sure I'm probably wrong, but it's just there's something about the way he looks in his eyes and in his face. It's almost like he's detached a little bit, and I don't know if it's, again, because of the frustration level or what's going on. But I really hope that he, as you said, sort of does that soul searching and really digs deep and comes back. Because I would love to see him get back on a much higher level than what he's been playing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But anyways, enough of Tiger Woods. This is a Women of Golf show, so we obviously want to talk about the ladies out there. We got a great young lady that's joining us now, Jennie Lee from the Symetra Tour. Just a little bit about Jennie. She's played 35 career starts on the LPGA Tour, one top 10 finish. She's a Henderson, Nevada native and played college at Duke for 2 NCAA national championship teams, a very accomplished player, as well as a 2-time member of the winning U.S. Curtis Cup team back in 2006 and 2008. And she's had 10 career top 10 finishes on the Symetra Tour since 2009. Please welcome Jennie Lee.
Good morning, Jennie.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Jennie, thank you very much for joining us, Cindy and I, this morning. We're very honored and feel very privileged having you join us here. And
thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. And Cindy, I'll let you start things off.
Well, Jennie and I had the privilege of speaking at the beginning of the year, and we haven't really touched base since then, but I'm assuming everything has worked out in your situation.
It has. It was a bit of a rocky start for me just to get things rolling financially with sponsors, and somehow it kind of worked out little by little, and then it was nice to just get the ball rolling a little bit to play some golf and just to get some momentum.
Well, that's good. That's good. So tell us, how many events have you played so far this year?
I think that we've played I think we played 10 events so far this year. Super. Yeah.
And are you happy with your game?
I am. Right now I feel pretty good. It was a slow start for me starting in February because I didn't feel like I prepared as well as I would have liked, but definitely playing more tournaments, and we've played quite a few consecutive weeks. So I feel like that's really helped kind of get me get a feel for where my game's at, where the work needs to be. So playing in consecutive weeks kind of helps for me. You got to have a little bit of rest, but I feel like it's really helped me kind of get an idea for how my game is.
Well, that's good. And what are you working on in your game right now?
Right now, mostly my swing. I am coming inside a little bit on my backswing, so I'm trying to tighten the screws a little bit on my takeaway, and I come over the top a little bit. So I do get a lot of misses out to the right, so I'm trying to get a little bit of a better takeaway so that I can have a little more consistency in the downswing.
Well, that's good.
Jennie, this is Ted. Let me just ask you sort of a follow-up question from the earlier comments.
Yep.
When you're playing, in consecutive weeks, obviously you're, the juices are sort of flowing and you're kind of in the zone. But what happens when you have a couple of weeks off where you don't play an event? What do you do then to make sure that your game stays sharp?
I'm not a huge fan of going out and kind of grinding on practice, especially during season. You play so much golf from Tuesday to Sunday, and with all the travel, it does take a lot of wear and tear on your body. So during my weeks off, I just want to, go out and practice a little bit just to stay fresh and, keep the feel going. But I don't like to go out and play and be out there for hours and hours. I think it's most important to just especially get your rest when you can, because when you pack up and leave, you want to make sure your body is fresh again.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think that's a mistake that a lot of amateurs make, is they sometimes spend too much time on the practice tee and not enough time actually in real course situations. And I think that more often than not, that adds to their frustration. That's some very interesting advice. Now, you're obviously from a native of Henderson, Nevada. What's the difference, obviously, traveling around the United States into different climates and things like that? Do you find that you have to make adjustments to your game?
A little bit, not so much. The ball definitely travels further in Las Vegas and Henderson because the air is so much drier, especially when I go to places that have really high humidity. The ball is not going to travel quite as far. So you might lose a couple yards here and there. So that's probably the main difference. Sometimes we go where, the elevation is a little bit higher and the ball might travel a little bit further because of the elevation change. But mostly I felt like with the humidity, kind of have to pay attention. So especially during the practice rounds, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I just try and keep a note of how far all my shots are going.
Do you sort of play with the status quo? And what I mean by that is when you do, let's say, play in a course that maybe is in a higher elevation, do you change any of your equipment, like the ball, for instance? Do you play different balls depending on where you're playing, or do you pretty much stay status quo?
No, I definitely stay status quo. I keep the same golf ball. I don't really change any of my golf clubs. I'm not a huge fan of changing equipment unless I feel like I really need to make an adjustment, but I find it much more easier for me just to change, not even change anything, really just adjust to just a couple more yards in the ball flight or a couple yards less, because to me that's just a much more comfortable change rather than a change in equipment.
Yeah, I think that's certainly very wise. Now, let me just ask you one more question, and Cindy, I'll let you come back as well. Now, you've obviously played for Duke and also for the U.S. Curtis Cup team. Does the pressure intensify when you're playing with teammates more so than when you're playing on your own? Do you notice a difference in the pressure level, or is it pretty much the same?
Yes and no. I think it's about the same, except I think you have more people you can celebrate with, more people that you can just enjoy the game with. So I think the pressure is about the same, because even when you're playing on a team, you still have to play your own golf ball. So I think the game feels the same, but it's definitely nice to have teammates out there where you can, celebrate a birdie with or give a high five to, because you feel like you're all in the same boat. So I think it's yes, an individual, but it's also it's a great atmosphere to be in.
Well, it's nice to have that support, as you said, when you're going around, especially if you're, coming in towards the end of the field. It's kind of nice to have some of your fellow teammates sort of encouraging and rooting you on, like you said, or giving you a high five when you get a nice Shot pulled off, or a birdie or something to that effect. What's what are your strengths under pressure, do you think?
Under pressure, for me, I do like to rely a lot on my putting. I think a lot of times it's really easy for me to get kind of ahead of myself. But I think it's really easy. I like to rely on my putting, and then also my iron shots coming in. Just really staying in the process of knowing what I can do best, because it all goes back to where your confidence is at, and all goes back to where your strengths are at. So if you know you can hit a good iron shot in there, if you know you have a good putt you can make, I think that's a confidence booster under pressure.
Cindy,
Jennie, talk to us about fitness. What do you do as far as fitness? I'm sure the Symetra Tour now probably has a fitness van. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming they do. And how often do you work out?
We actually don't have a fitness van that travels with us. We have a physical therapist for any injuries, which has been great this year. But as far as working out, I definitely try to go to a local gym, probably between 2 or 3 times a week. So usually either somewhere between Monday and Wednesday, I like to get a heavier workout in, just to make sure my muscles can kind of maintain everything and stay strong, because by Sunday it gets pretty tiring walking 18 holes every day. So I find that when I have a couple good workouts and earlier on in the week, I actually feel stronger going into the weekend. And then throughout, once the tournament starts, kind of Thursday to Sunday, I do a lot of mobility exercises and just make sure everything in my body is feeling good, and do a lot of stretches just to make sure my muscles are staying loose. So I'll do a really light workout, maybe just a tiny bit of cardio, but I do a lot more mobility stuff. So it kind of changes throughout the week as the tournament starts.
Jennie, do you, Jack Nicklaus talked famously in his book Golf My Way that when he played a round of golf, he always liked to pack a little snack or something in his golf bag. So, as he was playing the course, if he needed to sort of rejuvenate his energy. Do you do anything like that? Excuse me. Pardon me. Do you do anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have some go-to snacks that I like to bring with me on the golf course. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are always super easy. Or I always have a granola bar in there, in case I kind of run out of food and I forgot to pack something. So I kind of like to have that as my backup. But a lot of apples and bananas. I love eating Greek yogurt in the morning because it has so much protein, and it's super quick. It's on the go. Avocados are always great. I love avocados. Just throw some on a toast, and it has good fats, good protein. And then just like dinner time, I like to make sure I refuel with a lot of vegetables, that get a lot of vitamins in me for the next day, and then usually kind of a lighter protein like some chicken, just to keep myself not so full, going to bed,
right.
To make sure I got everything my body needs so that I can go the next day. So nutrient, it's extremely important for me.
Do you have a caddy? And if you do, is it the same one all year?
It is not. I found a caddy that this caddy volunteered for me last week in Battle Creek, Michigan, or 2 weeks ago, and so he said he could maybe come out this weekend. But a lot of times I sign up for a volunteer caddy. Usually within the town, I sign up through the tournament director or the caddy master, and they usually pair me up with a volunteer caddy for the tournament. So it's really, really helpful when I can find somebody that can help carry the bag. If it rains, they can help with the umbrella and everything. So it's really helpful to find a volunteer caddy at each tournament site.
That's awesome.
Who, Jennie, who were some of your earlier inspirations in golf? Was there anybody on tour, either past or even present, that really that you admire?
Yes, definitely. Growing up, I admired Annika. I really enjoyed watching Lorena Ochoa play, especially with Lorena, just her, she was so popular amongst all her fans and the fellow competitors because of her personality and just how she was engaging with everybody. So I really, really admired that. I'm also a huge fan of Katrina Matthew, who also plays right now because she has 2 kids, she lives in Scotland, and she's still able to balance golf and family, and I just think I respect her a lot for that. So I'm a huge fan of her. And also a huge fan of Amy Azado as well.
well,
and
I'm
why
sure.
are you a fan of Amy Azado? I want to ask that question.
Why?
Yeah.
I've gotten to know her a little bit during my time on the LPGA, and she is one of the nicest people you will ever meet. She's always got a smile on her face. She's nice to all the players, all the volunteers. She's always so respectful of everybody, and she's always got a great attitude. No matter when you catch her, where you catch her, she's always so happy to see you. So she's always a great face to run into, whether it's at the grocery store, golf course, practice round. So I love being around her.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Do you find that, despite the fact that you have to be competitive with a lot of these young ladies on the Symetra Tour and or the LPGA, that despite that competitiveness, there's still a lot of camaraderie amongst the girls?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially out here this year, I've been traveling with another player, Kim Welch, and so we've really spent a lot of time just hanging out off the golf course, which is great. It does get really lonely out here, especially because you're packing up every week and, you don't have your family with you all the time or your closest friends. So it's really fun to have somebody to go to dinner with or just to do random stuff with. Yesterday we had a day off, so we went to Chicago, and that was so much fun. Last week we had a ton of rain delays. So it was just really nice to have somebody else with you who's also traveling and doing the same thing. It's definitely competitive because, we're ultimately competing out here, but you really have to I think it's just a good balance of being able to do the work that you need to do and being individual and kind of disciplined in your goals, and then also being able to just have fun with your friends, go out for dinner, relax, and just be normal once you're off the golf course.
Jennie, let me ask you a question, and this is really geared more for the amateurs that are tuning into the program. They see really what they see on TV. They see the professionals and the accomplishments that all of you have made, not just in the wins that you do, but just the level of play. What are some things that you think that amateurs could do better in being able to play better? That maybe they're not doing now. If you were sort of going to be that bird in their ear, so to speak, and you could sort of breathe some words of life into some of these amateur golfers out there, what would you advise them on what they should be doing as opposed to maybe what they're doing now to help their game?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I think there's so many different levels of amateurs that it's a really general question. But
how about beginners? Let's narrow
Sure.
it down to say beginners. Let's do beginners.
Mm-hmm. I think it really helps, especially for beginners, just to maybe spend a little bit of time on the driving range just to understand the fundamentals, just a little bit with, alignment and just kind of being familiar with swinging a golf club and being familiar with chipping and just feeling comfortable. And then I think once you kind of are comfortable with that in the beginning, I think the best thing to do is just to go out on a golf course and have fun. I think it's really easy to get frustrated out there, especially with 10, 15 handicappers. Maybe they feel like they could break 80, but, sometimes it doesn't work, and then sometimes they might have a round over 100. I think that's really frustrating, but, golf is a great game. I think for 5 hours you can have so much fun, especially going out with your friends or enjoying a nice day. And I think just especially if you just get the fundamentals down a little bit and just know where your comfort zone is, I think there and have fun is probably the most important thing.
I agree wholeheartedly. So what does Jennie do when she's not on the golf course? What do you do for fun outside of the golf course?
For fun, I love yoga. It's been tough on the road, but especially playing weeks in a row, my body gets super tired. But when I go home, I love doing Bikram yoga, just hot yoga. Just feels 100 times better. I love yoga. I also really like running, just recreationally. I'll run a few miles and just kind of sightsee a little bit in some different towns that I go to, so I really enjoy doing that. Running and yoga.
Jennie, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm definitely an introvert. I think I'm pretty outgoing, and I feel comfortable being social, but I'm kind of somebody that likes to have my own time to kind of refuel myself. So I like my own space a little bit, but I love having friends and having a social life. But I think I'm definitely an introvert too.
You enjoy the quiet time sometimes too, I guess, as being an introvert.
I do.
You like to just have that downtime.
For sure.
Well,
I don't get bored easily being by myself.
Now, do you have any other hobbies? I mean, obviously you enjoy golf and yoga and things like that, but do you have any hobbies unrelated to golf that you enjoy?
I like cooking.
Oh, wow.
I pretend I like cooking. It's hard on the road. Being in a different space every week. But when I go home, I definitely like to try to get in the kitchen and make good food. All I can do really on the road is watch Food Network and be inspired. And then when I go home, I try to put everything together, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
And do you normally stay in private housing, or do you stay in hotels?
I do try to do a lot of private housing. It really helps with expenses. It cuts down. You don't have paying for a hotel 7 days a week for weeks in a row is really tough financially. So I do sign up for private housing a lot. And I also really like staying with families in a home. Being in a hotel does get really lonely because you're just so secluded in your room. But I really enjoy meeting families and just having a family to go back to at the end of the day off the golf course is really comforting for me. So I try to stay in private housing as much as I can.
Well, and I imagine it makes it, like you said, fun and interesting. You get to meet a lot of different people in that process, and it can be. Hotels can be nice for a night or two, but as you said, if you're there for 6 or 7 days a week, it gets a little bit monotonous, and staring at the same four walls all the time, I'm sure gets a little bit boring. Plus, you can't, unless you get a suite, you can't do a lot of cooking there either, can you?
No, you can't. They might have a little tiny fridge, but that's about it.
Well, so what's next for Jennie? What tournament's coming up next?
This week we are playing in South Bend, Indiana. So we have a tournament here, and this is I played here last year, and this is a great tournament. So I'm really excited for this week, and then I think there's a tournament up in Upper Michigan, which I'm not playing in. Next week I decided to go to a friend's wedding, and then I'll be back on the road for another tournament in Tullamore, which is a new tournament on the Symetra tour. So that's just north of Grand Rapids. So
fantastic.
Just a couple more tournaments left until we get another week off.
And let me ask you, will you be in Rochester for the Danielle Downey tournament?
Yes, I will be there. I think that's the week after the week off.
Okay, cool. I'll bring all my little LPGA Girls Golf Club people.
Oh, awesome. That'll be so much fun.
Yes.
I heard that's going to be a great tournament. I'm really excited to go.
Super.
Awesome.
Well,
awesome.
Well, Jennie, we want to thank you for joining us this morning, and we know that you've got lots of things to do in preparation, and we want to wish you all the best for this weekend, and we know that you got a game plan in mind for the weekend and how you're going to tackle the course, and we don't want you to spill any secrets out here and give your competitors any sort of an advantage, so we won't ask you that, but we want to wish you all the best of luck, and thank you very much for joining Sydney and I this morning on the Women of Golf Show. We appreciate it, and we'd love to have you come back.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
All right.
Thanks,
thank you.
Jennie. Good luck this week.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. What a great young lady.
Yes,
Just
she is.
The one thing I've noticed very quickly, and I know Gail's waiting for us, so it won't take too long. One thing I've noticed about a lot of the young ladies that come on here from the Symetra Tour is they all are very enthusiastic, very upbeat, despite having to be out there each and every week grinding it out, and sometimes it doesn't always go their way, but they all have a positive attitude. Every single one of them that we've had on here just have a really good positive attitude.
Well, I think they realize, depending on how long they've been out there,
mm-hmm.
Jennie's been out there. She graduated from college in 2009,
mm-hmm.
and she almost didn't get enough money to play this year. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the conversation.
Right.
So I believe she realizes how fortunate she is to have the opportunity to chase her dreams.
Yeah.
And she realizes, listening to her talk about fitness and talk about her diet, and she realizes that she is her only inventory and that she needs to make her the best she can be, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, that's what I would say. They don't all realize how lucky they are.
No, I'm sure.
And
I'm sure
it's funny because I volunteered last week at the KPMG on Wednesday morning, and I got there at 6:45 a.m., and there were a few girls on the driving range, and they didn't look like they were having a whole lot of fun. And even, most of the day, I would say smiling and grateful, there were probably 5.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was Robotville.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and that's really what I was saying earlier about going out and sort of having fun and that sort of thing. But then there comes a point in time, you've got to sort of flick that switch and it game's on. And there's a lot of camaraderie, as I said, I'm sure amongst a lot of the players out there. But I'm sure there comes a point in time that when they get on the golf course, they have to sort of put that friendship aside and focus on the task at hand. But we'll bring on our next guest here in just a second. Let me just tell a little bit about our next guest, Gail Graham. Gail is an accomplished executive with over 35 years' experience in the golf industry as a professional golfer on the LPGA Tour, also a broadcast commentator and association president, project manager, business owner, and tournament director for 2 world-class LPGA and Champion Tour events. Graham's golf career started in Winnipeg, Manitoba, an unlikely spot, of course, with limited season. I can attest to that. But with an incredible competitive environment at St. Charles Country Club and parents that directed her to do her best and provide the opportunity for her to exceed, she rose quickly from a novice player to both Manitoba Provincial Junior and Amateur Champion. College golf at Lamar University was next and again provided the opportunity to play, enjoy, and excel at the game. And let a passion and drive to pursue golf as a career. With a degree in mass communications in hand and a spot on the Canadian national team, Graham spent a year and a half representing Canada at the international events in Colombia, Venezuela, and Australia, just to name a few places, where she was a member of the victorious Commonwealth Championship team. She turned professional in 1988 and immediately began competing on the Futures Tour, which is, of course, now the Symetra Tour. And after finishing one shot out of an LPGA card in 1988, she returned to the Futures Tour in 89 and finished the season with one Futures Tour win, the Canadian PGA Women's Championship, and a successful trip to the LPGA qualifying school. Let's bring Gail out, and we'll talk a little bit more about Gail Graham.
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, and welcome to the Women of Golf. Gail, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I didn't
and what
get a chance.
city Sorry, what
Sorry,
city might you be in today?
I am sitting in my living room in Naples, Florida. Finally.
Oh.
I saw Cindy last week at the KPMG Women's Championship. I did a little business and a little pleasure trip up the East Coast and arrived home last night. So nice little trip with myself and my dogs, and played lots of golf, and saw a lot of good golf, and now back here where it's nice and toasty warm.
Yes,
I bet it is toasty warm.
Yeah, it's definitely warm here in Florida. Gail, let me just ask you I talked about some of the highlights. I know there was plenty more to read out here, but I wanted to give you a chance. Why don't you just give the listeners just a little bit more background of your history and sort of how things came about to where they are today?
Sure. Well, you led up nicely to my LPGA career, and my rookie year was 1990. I think Cindy will agree that sort of era between maybe 1980 and 1995 was a fun era on the LPGA tour. I have a numerous number of friends that I continue to hang out with and play golf with and stay in touch with. And we were competitors, but we were far greater friends than we were competitors. So, I grew. It took me a while to grow on the LPGA. Futures Tour gave me a really, really good start, but I actually pretty much learned to play competitive golf in my first couple of years on the LPGA Tour, and it took me 5 years to get a win under my belt, and I followed one up a year and a half later, and the competitive part of me is still strong, but at the same time, I felt a need, and I guess it came through my father and just in his service to associations and to his job and to golf clubs that we were members at. I became a member of the LPGA's executive committee, and during my 15 years out there, I spent 7 of those years representing the players on the executive committee, including 2 as president. So I saw the administrative side of the game on the LPGA Tour, and got an education that actually has helped me transition from competitive golf into a career after life on tour, which I think is a difficult prospect for a lot of players. They don't want to give up that competitive side of it, but I think that time on the executive committee and serving and doing a lot of sponsor relations really helped me that way. So it certainly led me into 2 jobs that I had, president of the tournament owners and tournament director for the CME Group Tour Championship and Ace Group Classic. I wouldn't have had the background or the knowledge or even the idea that I was able to do something like that if I hadn't have served on the executive committee. So I've kind of run the gamut on things within the industry. I think yes, I was a rep for a while. I was going to say the only thing I haven't done is been a rep for a company, but I actually worked for Ping for a year, so I guess I've done that too. Crazy.
Gail, there's a lot that goes on, and you've obviously just alluded to quite a bit of it, but there's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes, really, in golf. I mean, everybody, we watch TV and we see the tournaments and that. We see the players, showing up for the week and playing their rounds, and ultimately on Sunday we celebrate with the winner. But there's a lot more that goes behind the scenes in preparation for tournaments, but also organizing the season as well. And you've been involved in some of that along the way as well, both on the player side, but also, as you said, in the administrative side. There is a lot more that goes on that people don't realize, correct?
Oh, absolutely. A player has one thing to look after, and that's yourself. Cindy, you alluded to that earlier, talking about Jen. And, you look after yourself, you do the best for yourself, you try to prepare yourself to be able to excel and to play at the peak of your game. When you step out on the golf course, there's 750 volunteers that have to be organized, and uniforms bought for them, and lunches made, and organization of shifts, and just a whole. It's like it takes a village. It really does take a village to put on a golf tournament. And then you have a tournament staff that is full time year round, who is drumming up those volunteers, who's building relationships within the community with charities, with media, with sponsors. There's sponsorship selling. There's pro-am sales. There's trying to get guys and women to be a part of that pro-am and have that experience. There's just so many things that go into what what I definitely, for a time, took for granted on the LPGA, that I would just show up and there would be an event there for me to play in. Being on the other side of it, and as I say, outside the ropes, it really gives you a perspective of what all it entails. It's a year-round job to put on an event for that 1 week a year. And, Cindy, you were up at the KPMG last week. They had 40 events that they scheduled throughout the week that had nothing to do with golf. And that's crazy in a first-year event. It's an unimaginable undertaking, except for the fact that the PGA has been doing that with their championships for forever. But it's a risk that you need to make sure each one of those is done to a ability that is can be enjoyed by everyone, that is at a level that the sponsor appreciates the work that's gone on, and it puts on a good face for the sponsor. So there's a lot of stuff that does go on behind the scenes, and while a lot of it seems tedious, it's really fun to build that all year long to a crescendo and a fantastic week. And then you pray for great weather, because if you don't have great weather, then that just throws a wrench into it.
all that hard work kind of falls a little by the wayside. That's true. Do you think, obviously, Gail, and this is, I'm sure, kind of a redundant question, but do you think as a player and somebody that's worked behind the scenes, that as a player it gave you a greater appreciation of just what went on to prepare for your playing?
Oh, absolutely. And as much as, I'd love to be 20 again and heading out onto the LPGA Tour now, I did enjoy the time that I was out there, and what I saw and what I learned, and there's a time and a place for everything. And I think those perspectives of being inside the ropes and being a player and receiving the accolades, to then making things happen so that other players can then receive those accolades is really it's really gratifying, to be honest. And I actually just spent the weekend up at Seneca Lake in New York with the former tournament chairman of the Corning Classic. And the last event in Corning was in 2009, and he to this day he misses that. We talked about something that happened the week of May 17th, and he's like, "Oh, that's Advance Week," which is the week before the event usually happens. And so it's kind of he still relates 6 years later, still relates to when the event was scheduled and what happened on the build-up to it, and I can totally appreciate that.
Let me ask you a question. Does the LPGA require the rookies to see the background of what it takes to put a tournament on?
Yeah, back when I was starting out on tour and through the executive committee years, the LPGA established a rookie program where you had to accomplish, I think it was 20 hours. I'm not sure what the hours are now, but they still have to spend a period of time learning the different facets of what goes on in a tournament week. So, and they may do that throughout the year. So they may pick an event early in the year, and they may ride with the rules official and learn about the marking of the golf course and learn how they choose pin placement. They may spend some time in the media center, talking with reporters, not on an interview level, but on how do you do this? Why do you cover us? To understand why the media is out there and what their job is that week to really do. And then they'll spend time in the tournament office with a tournament director or volunteer chairman, so they can understand what goes on with a tournament. And I know a few of my friends who came on tour a little bit after me and did have to do the rookie program. That was one of the things that was really eye-opening, because they would have to show up at volunteer headquarters at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they wouldn't be done till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that whole shift is, if you're marshalling, it's not the most exciting thing in the world. You see some great golf, but you're standing out in the heat or the rain, in the bug, and you're trying to direct people who are pretty set on, I'm going this way, and you can't go that way. So, it's a total learning curve. So they do still get that background. The LPGA has done a good job of reorganizing for the players, so that there are groups or pods that younger players meet with older players. There's a big sister program so that some of the older players can impart not only playing experience and just knowledge about the events, but just advice about life and how to travel to the younger players. So there's a lot of that goes on still, but I think that it's been a very successful program with the rookie program to have them understand, why a sponsor puts on the event. And as a matter of fact, Mike Wan, when he started as commissioner, he puts out a sheet every week that basically says, here are the people who are paying the bills this week. This is what you need to know about, for instance, KPMG. Here's the people you need to know. Here's their core business. Why are they doing this event? What are their goals in doing it? And how do you fit into that? Here's some ideas for tweeting. Here's some ideas for Instagram. You need to support the sponsor, so you need to know as much as you can about it. So the players walk in to a Tuesday evening Pro-Am party, and they are fully prepared, and they can pick out the picture of, like, that's that guy I saw on the sheet each week that let me know that he's the man I need to go thank because he's the one that made it possible for us to be playing here.
On a personal note, Gail, I can attest to I marshaled actually at years ago at the Canadian Open when it was at Glen Abbey, and if you're familiar with Glen Abbey, down in the valley, down in the valley, and there wasn't a breath of breeze. And actually, when I marshaled there, it was when they used to have the Canadian Open. I believe it was in June before they moved it into closer to the fall schedule in September, I believe it is now. And so we had full humidity, and I'm telling you, there was literally not a breath of breeze in that valley. And I don't want to say it was an unenjoyable experience, but it was a lot different than I anticipated. So I have a much greater appreciation for the many volunteers that go to these different events. So it's not always the experience you think it's going to be, but it was fun. I did enjoy it ultimately, but yeah, it was different. Now, obviously, I know that from some of the notes that sent over that you also have played on the Legends Tour now as well with some of your competitors that you had before on the regular LPGA Tour, like Joanne Carner and Beth Daniel and Patty Sheen and Rosie Jones, of course, and of course Cindy Miller.
Of course.
What some of the ladies have been on here before. Rosie, of course, has been on here before, and some of the others. What do you find different? Is it more relaxed now, do you think, than what it was when you played earlier on? What's the feeling?
It is in certain ways. I think Cindy will agree that the competitiveness and the drive is still there. These ladies still want to play the best golf that they can play. They still will smile at you and in the meantime be dropping a 10-foot birdie putt on you, right? As soon as they smile at you. So, but there's a lot more. It's a little. I would say it's a little freer. You can jab a little bit at a player. And I remember a couple of years ago I was playing with Chris Cheddar in Seattle, and she hit this booming tee shot on this par 5, and of course she waited to go for it in 2, and then proceeded to cold top it and move the ball about 30 yards. So then I had to wait for her to hit her third shot. And she, as soon as she finished her golf swing and the ball stopped rolling, she goes, "I know, I suck." And she would never have done that. Said that. She would have been mad. She would have put her head down and walked straight to her ball and hit her next shot. She never would have cracked up about it. And then once we both had hit our shots to the green, we laughed the whole way up the fairway because it was like, wow, I remember, the last time I did that, it was however many years ago, and how embarrassing, and we laughed about it. But the camaraderie's there, and I think what's really amazing about it is when fans come out, they see that camaraderie amongst the players, and they feel like they're a part of it, because the players will have them join in the conversation. Whereas now you get out there on tour, and as Cindy said, they're on the range, it's pretty quiet, and nobody seems to be enjoying themselves. And I think every player on the Legends Tour enjoys being out there and having the opportunity to continue to showcase women's golf and to compete, and just to be around those great players that you spent so many years with on tour. I mean, Nancy Lopez was my inspiration for starting. Her rookie year, 1978, was the year I started to play golf. And so it was kind of that's Nancy Lopez. I would love to play golf with her sometime. And next thing I know, I'm out on tour with her in 1990, and I'm telling her she was my inspiration. And she's like, "You be quiet." And then when I get on the Legend Tour, there she is again. And now it's we're friends on Facebook. I mean, it's kind of a mind-blowing experience that you can have that relationship with some of the greatest athletes of all time.
Yeah, and so many great ladies that have contributed to the game. Kathy Whitworth, of course, was our very first guest on the program, and just a wealth of knowledge. Just amazing what some of these players have learned over the years, and I think it's just it's not so much that I don't want to say that it's necessarily relaxed, but I just think with the maturity that all of you have gained over the years, I just think there's maybe it's more appreciated where you are. You enjoy it more. You have more fun. And as you said, it's not as serious as you see on and I don't mean to take away that it's not serious. Certainly you are all still competitive. But I think that you have a greater appreciation of where you are now, perhaps than what you did maybe 15 or 20 years ago when you were playing on the LPGA.
I totally agree with that. And there's a gratitude for who came before us and who's there now. I mean, I have such an appreciation for some of these players that are out there grinding away now, and the injuries that they're going through, and the trying to start families and get married and just trying to live life and compete. And it is so very competitive that you can't let your guard down for 1 second. And no. I think as older players, we really appreciate that. We can look back at our own careers and go, wow, we did that. We all were there at that level doing that, and now we can definitely appreciate what they're doing. But at the same time, I think we all have a better understanding of business and of how lucky we are to have done what we loved for a living. And so when it comes to sponsors, when it comes to fans, when it comes to the media, we're open to anything they want us to do, and appreciate being there. And I, for one, feel very lucky that I was ever a part of that. And sometimes I scratch my head that, wow, I can't believe that happened. But it is, I have a huge appreciation for where I was and what's happening for them now. And I think the LPGA is in a great spot, and I think that is due in a large part to the sisterhood that has been going on for over 60 years.
And the other thing that Cindy and I have had the pleasure of talking with, not just a number of great players so far on the program, but also a lot of business women who have adopted golf, if you will, as part of their as a business tool, essentially. More and more women are starting to recognize the benefits of golf, not just for business, not just for social aspects, but for business aspects. Is that something that you're obviously you're using yourself, but that you're trying to encourage other women to sort of grapple with that as well?
Absolutely. Cindy and I were at an event a few weeks ago with the ACE Group in Philadelphia, where it was an executive group of women who had come together for a couple days of golf, and male executives have been doing this for forever, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's guilt or it's just or fear. I think that women have just kind of put that aside and not thought themselves capable of doing that. And you explain to them that the guy sitting next to you at the boardroom table is a pretty bad golfer. Yep. But he shows up to go play because it's business golf, and he laughs and he picks his ball up when he needs to. But it's the 4 hours, the 4 hours that you spend on a golf course with a colleague that can close a deal, that can open new doors, that can provide such an opportunity to move upward and to build your business and to get your name out there, that is so incredibly important. And to be honest, I think that is an untapped market in the game.
Yes.
And not necessarily for somebody to go out and build a whole golf company around executive women, but certainly it is for instruction and for apparel and just sort of the opportunities for golf clubs to offer memberships, business memberships, and that just provide women with more opportunity, because the real go-getters are looking for that, but the ones who are kind of on the fence, they kind of need a little bit of a push. And whether it's a Cindy Miller or a Gail Graham, they need an advocate for them to say, you know what, you can do this, and you can get out there and you can be a part of this community that all of a sudden is opening doors and leading you into, the boardroom and to the executive offices where you want to be.
Yeah, that's so true. Now, speaking of Cindy, Gail, I know that you've known Cindy for a number of years, and I've said this many, many times on the show that she's probably one of the hardest working women in golf. So I want to ask you this question, Gail. Does Cindy ever take a break?
Not that I've seen. I'm not sure. I think she has one of those switches that at midnight it goes off, and at 5 a.m. it comes back on automatically. Cindy to me is, she's an inspiration, a real role model for me to kind of follow in the instructions and in golf schools and in speaking and just being out there. She puts herself out there every day, and what really comes through, and I think why Cindy is very successful, is because she has such a love and a passion for both the game and for people, and it shows. She gets excited about a woman who's a beginner getting the ball airborne, and it's like yoo-hoo, you celebrate that, and I think that just draws people in. So Cindy's, and I feel like I'm talking about her in third person, like she's not on the call, but
I'm right here.
Okay. I know you are. But it's she's. I think Cindy is one of the very best LPGA club teaching and club professionals in the game, and obviously, having won the National Teacher of the Year last year, that's a testament to who she is and how hard she works. But the key being, it's always fun. And while there are serious moments, it's always fun, and you walk away with any encounter with Cindy feeling better about yourself, which is kind of a cool thing.
Well, I think
that was nice.
Yeah,
I'll pay you later.
All right. Let's end the show on that note. We've got a few more minutes. The reason why I asked you that, Gail, and it wasn't just to obviously to continue to prop up Cindy, because I think Cindy just does a phenomenal job. But the reason why I asked that was, Cindy has mentioned many, many times on the show that different things that she's doing or what she was doing last week. And the one sort of resounding thing that I've really heard was, in her messages and in her conversations is, what can I do to make it better for the game? Mm-hmm. Sort of resonates. What can I do? And it brings me to a point. Again, we've had the honor and pleasure of speaking with some really fantastic ladies, not just in the golf business as players, but also as businesswomen as well. And it seems to be sort of a resounding undertone throughout the whole women's golf is that everybody's trying to do what they can to make it a better game, more fun for everybody, more accessible for more women, and just sort of let them know that this is something out there for them as well. And I think Cindy does, as you just alluded to in your compliments, does a phenomenal job. What are some things that you yourself, Gail, are seeing in the future of the game that you want to sort of move and gravitate your sort of end of things to?
Well, I've always been of the belief, and I think it was Kathy Whitworth who pounded it into my head when I was a rookie, that you need to leave the game a better place than where you started. So you start the game as a novice, you start the game for recreational purposes, and before you know it, you've excelled to a point where you're now receiving accolades and you're playing on the LPGA Tour. And being able to look at the founders, the 13 founders of the LPGA, and say, those women were highly competitive, they were way ahead of their time, but they banded together and they did whatever they had to do to make it happen. And I think as women, we need to continue to do that. I don't think we can take it for granted at all. I think we need to continue to thank the sponsors publicly and write handwritten thank you notes and get out in front of people and introduce more people to the game and talk to the little girls and the little boys in the crowd and inspire them to be the next Nancy Lopez or the Brooke Henderson or the Suzanne Pedersen or the Indy Park and just continue to provide that sort of culture that continues to build the game. And I think that that's a point of differentiation between the LPGA and the PGA Tour. PGA Tour is big business, highly competitive, very entertaining, and all you have to do is to look at their purse levels to know that
Sure.
corporate America likes that for that aspect. But if you talk to someone who's played in an LPGA Pro-Am, and then they've also played in the PGA Tour Pro-Am, they'll pick the LPGA Pro-Am 10 times out of 10. And they'll say, you know what, yeah, it was great to play with X player on the PGA Tour. You know, he's got a great career. He's a major champion, but I really didn't enjoy myself. Whereas you can go out with any player from number 1 to number 200 on the LPGA Tour money list and have an experience that you're going to remember. And I think that is something that the LPGA has done a good job with continuing to build the culture with the young players coming up. I had a conversation with a gentleman who was an executive with KPMG last week, and he played with Lydia Ko in the Pro-Am. And she's 18 years old, and she blew him away. He said, we had 3 CEOs in the group and this young woman who could have been any one of our daughters, and she knew more about us than we knew about her by the end of the round, and she'd found all of our buttons to push, and she laughed and she complimented us, and that was like one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. And this is a guy who's probably played in, you know, some of the biggest events and been to the biggest sporting events ever, and that's an amazing compliment to the LPGA Tour and its players, and I think that's something that former players, you know, from Kathy Whitworth to Cindy Miller, understand that, and we need to continue to grow that and keep that moving forward.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. I've been to a number of PGA events, and I would agree with you. And I've been to obviously some LPGA events over the years as well, and I would agree with that statement 100%. I think that the ladies have just really done a phenomenal job, the LPGA and all of its members, both on the players' side of things and the teachers and club professionals like Cindy and others have just done a phenomenal job of not just growing the game, but just really, in my opinion, bringing a professionalism to the sport and an approachability. I think that's something, too, that I've heard over the years as well, that, you know, playing with the ladies, that they're just very approachable, very entertaining, very fun, just a pleasure. And you're right. I'm sure 10 out of 10 times they would rather play in an LPGA Pro-Am than they would a PGA. And I know I would for sure myself. So, but well said. Well, Gail, unfortunately we have to wrap up, but I've enjoyed it, and thank you for the kind words for Cindy. I know that she
she will pay you later.
And the check is in the mail, and but you know what, Cindy, I've said this to you a number of times on air, and I'm gonna close the show in saying this, and then we'll wrap up. But you are certainly among, if not the hardest working woman in golf. And certainly a great asset, not only to the profession, but a great asset to this show. And I appreciate all the hard work that you do in bringing some great guests to the program and that. So thank you, Cindy. I'll say that publicly. And Gail, thank you for joining us this morning. And you're certainly welcome to come back anytime. We would love to have you come back. It's been an enjoyable conversation.
I would love to. And thank you so much, Ted and Cindy, for having me today.
Thank you, Gail. Have a great week.
You too.
All right. Thank you, Gail. All right, that was our special guest. What a great asset to the sport and to the game. Just full of energy and just a lot of knowledge, and I can certainly understand why she sticks around the game. Just brings a lot of excitement to it as well, and what a great and some wonderful compliments, Cindy. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. A very hard-working businesswoman. She has reinvented herself multiple times.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Cindy, on that note, we want to thank, of course, not just our guests, Jennie Lee and Gail Graham, for joining us here this morning on the Women of Golf. But, Cindy and I also want to thank all of you for tuning in. And again, once again, my apologies at the beginning there for some difficulties, but I'll remember to be a little bit more diligent the next week and make sure that my mic is turned on and not just talking to myself. But anyways, thank you very much, and we hope that you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to having you back here each and every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, right here in the Women of Golf Show. On behalf of Cindy Miller and myself, we want to thank you for joining us on the show. Cindy, you have a great week. Enjoy the U.S. Open and get some highlights for us, and we'll talk about what unfolds this week at the men's U.S. Open. And Cindy, have a great week, and I will see you next week here on the Women of Golf Show.
Thanks, Ted. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.